Call to order the December 21st, 2010 Board of Zoning and Appeals meeting. Will you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'd like to introduce the board members, starting to my right.
I'm Todd Chernick.
Walt Recook.
Gary Willis.
John McCrae.
Scott Kilgore.
Jim Hilly.
This time we need a motion to approve the November meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion for approval, Chairman.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Let it be known that it passed unanimously. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board composed of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determinations. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. At this time, we would like to present V10-011. Request is to allow a house to encroach into the 25-foot minimum side yard. Angela, will you please present? And this was deferred.
Yes, this petition was deferred from the November meeting, and it was also deferred from the October meeting. It was actually deferred then. I will summarize it for you. This property is located at 125 Roxbury Road, in the Northwest Fulton overlay. It's a single-family residence located on a lot just over an acre in the Roxbury Estate subdivision. In the process of building a pool in their backyard, the homeowners, Lou and Kim Bader, became aware that a portion of their house had been built 10.94 feet into the 25-foot side yard setback. That is closest the house is 14.06 feet from the property line. Basically, the house was permitted, the papers that were submitted for the permit to Fulton County were correct, but the house was located in the wrong place, and the mistake was not discovered until recently. Section 64.416I states that the minimum side yard is 25 feet and that no structure is located in this setback, therefore a variance is required. Staff, the Design Review Board reviewed this petition on October 5th and stated that if the petition was approved, they felt that an evergreen screen could be added, if possible, in the drainage easement. Building plan review, site plan review, arborist, DOT had no issues with the petition at the time. I will note that over the course of the past 2 months, the Baders have been in discussion with their next door neighbor about the possibility of purchasing additional property so that the pool, which is a total different issue, wouldn't be on their, would not encroach onto their neighbor's property. And there was some discussion about a specimen tree on the next door neighbor's property. The applicant's representative can give more information about that because I'm not sure where they are in the negotiations right now. But if that is still an issue, the arborist is here to answer questions about that. The applicant's response to the 4 considerations is as follows. The intent of section 64416 is to provide adequate space between the houses and to protect the aesthetics of the neighborhood by limiting the size of the homes. Bader's residence, while partly out of compliance, does not materially violate either of these objectives. At its closest point, the house is still more than 14 feet from the property line, and the home is similar in size and design to the residences of the neighbors. The Bader's variance application is granted, therefore it would not offend the spirit or intent of section 64416, and it would be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning resolution. Similarly, granting the variance application would cause no detriment, much less any substantial detriment, to the public good or surrounding properties. In fact, no one even noticed that there was an issue with the location of the house until over 2 years after it was built. On the other hand, it would create an unnecessary hardship for the Bader family to have to try to remedy this minor encroachment. Put simply, it would be prohibitively expensive and probably structurally impossible to redesign and construct the home to fully meet the setback requirements. This unnecessary hardship to the Baders is, of course, exacerbated because they had no knowledge of this potential problem when they purchased the house. Under these circumstances, it would be terribly unfair and arbitrary to deny the Baders the minimal relief from section 64416 that they are now requesting, and thus would create an unnecessary hardship for the owner while causing no detriment to the public. And staff recommended the following conditions. Number 1, to remove the partially constructed pool. Number 2, to restore the functionality of the drainage easement. And number 3, add evergreen screen for the recommendation of the City of Milton arborist. Staff presentation.
Any questions from the board to the staff regarding this application? Will the applicant please come forward and present? And if you would, state your name and address as well, please.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Eric Fisher. I spoke with you all about 2 months ago on behalf of William King Bader, and they apologize for not being able to attend the hearing this evening. One of the goals of deferring this hearing for 30 to 60 days, and we had to take the full 60 days, was because, as Ms. Rambo stated, there was a pool that's really at the center of this whole dispute. The pool was built on the Bader's property pursuant to the survey that was done prior to the construction of the house. Turns out that the developer built the house in an area that was not shown on the original survey. As Ms. Rambo summarized, no one knew about this for over 2 years, but when an as-built survey was done for the pool, what the homeowners in the city recognized was that the house, a small portion of the house, the southeast corner, was slightly over the setback line, and unfortunately the pool was well over the setback line and basically at the property line of the neighbor. So what the Baders have done is they've spent hours and hours of their own time and also hired my firm to try to help them find a solution to this problem. At the time of the last hearing, the Baders themselves were in negotiations with their neighbors on the side that's affected to do a small land swap to remedy this problem, and it would have remedied the problem of the house being slightly over the setback line as well as the pool. We recently learned that despite the hours of work, conversations with Ms. Rambeau, with Mr. Law on my behalf, conversations with Grant Shepard, the neighbors, I guess, just decided that they weren't interested, unfortunately. So several days ago, we reached a settlement in principle with the pool builder, Blue Haven, that will mostly at the Bader's expense, force them to fill back in the pool, which has already been dug and the concrete has been set in it, but no tile has been put down yet, to fill that in and to have the pool constructed in a different area of their yard. One of the other things that I believe you all had asked for was to try to get some input from the neighbor about the location of the house, because the variance application is for the house, not for the pool. And the Baders did try to get that, but they weren't successful in getting the letter. I do have a letter from the Baders, however, that summarizes some of their conversations with the neighbors and their belief that the neighbors were well aware of the variance application. Not only was it something that they had discussed, but that there was a sign in their yard for several months, and that the neighbors did not seem to mind that the house was several feet over the setback line, and in fact, I had never even noticed it. They had lived there for a couple of years. That was the best I can do on that front, and the best the Baders were able to do. Also, there was no mention of any sort of evergreen screen being necessary or any other type of blockage, because once again, it just isn't something that seemed to concern them. Of course, I would have liked to brought you a letter or had the neighbors here, but it couldn't happen, unfortunately. So I'm able to answer any questions you have. I think that probably the summary from Mr. Info describes the Bader's position as to the hardship that they would face, probably the possibility of having to try to move the house. They were taught to purchase the land from their neighbor essentially, and unfortunately that was no avail. And I think it is in a position where this is a perfect example of when a variance would be necessary and acceptable.
Any questions from the board to the applicant?
Exactly how many feet are you asking for on this variance?
Well, at the point of the greatest intrusion, which is at the southeast corner of the house, it's approximately 11 feet over the 25-foot setback line, so just over 14 feet from the property line. But that's only a small sliver of the house. Probably 98, 99% of the house, of the square footage of the house, is below the setback line. So I guess the answer to your question is 11 feet at its greatest point.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Fisher, as you know, one of our standards for consideration for any variance request that we get is that relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And in this case, we all know that your clients were in the home for some time. They didn't build the home, in essence. So, another one of our considerations is that the hardship was not self-inflicted, in other words. So we're not arguing that. We know that they moved into the home. The site design was in error when they moved in. We know that. But it's that clause that the surrounding properties are not impacted that is giving me pause here. Because it sounds like not only are the neighbors not fully in support of it or neutral, but they're actually, at this point, opposed to the proposition. So I'm thinking out loud. Can you add any?
If I can respond, this letter from the Baders, and I have several copies to show you, shows that the neighbors are actually not opposed to the house being over the setback line. In fact, they seem to not care about that aspect at all. What was at issue was being able to purchase enough land from the neighbors to allow the pool to stay where it was.
So there wasn't a separate transaction ever discussed to try and remedy the variance requests before us tonight? It was mainly just the pool area land swap that they were talking.
It was all bundled into one if they were able to.
And since it all fell through, you still need this.
Exactly, and we had done the variance request prior to knowing that. At first, the neighbor said that they were not going to consider any land swap whatsoever. That's when we petitioned for the variance. Then, in between the time that we submitted the variance application and the time of the October hearing, the neighbor said, you know what, we may be willing to consider this. Basically, they wanted a tree to be cut down on their property at the Bader's expense, so they could build their own pool, ironically. And they decided that they were going to change their plans and not build the pool, keep the tree, and it just wasn't worth their while to engage in this land swap. But as far as this variance application is concerned, with just a slight amount of the house going over the setback line that they didn't realize for several years, it seems to me, based on the information given to me by Lou and Kim Bader, who I've had multiple conversations with them, that they don't care about that at all. And the other neighbors in the neighborhood are not affected at all. And in fact, it's very possible that all of the houses in that subdivision are built incorrectly based on the way that they were initially approved.
The letter here that was passed up to us is actually from your clients. Do you have anything similar from the neighbors?
No.
Or just the secondhand word from your clients saying that they don't believe that there's an opposition?
That's all I was able to say.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could have gotten something from the neighbor, I would have certainly
Right.
tried. But once again, it seems to me that this variance was not something that was important enough to the neighbors for them to show up here at either of the two meetings, to respond at all to the city. And they had contacted the city about the pool. They hadn't contacted the city at all about the house, as far as I understand it. And the sign had been in the Bader's yard for several months. The neighbors didn't do anything about it.
And as you can imagine, what we're trying to consider is not just the variance request in front of us, but the public good, the overall impact on the community. And in this case, it's primarily just two parties, but we've only heard the one side, so that's what I'm trying to get at is, if we could maybe get a better read on the neighbors, then that, in effect, would satisfy that particular standard for consideration in my mind, but we just don't know.
I understand, and certainly I tried, and once again, it just seems to me that, putting myself in your shoes, that if the neighbors had cared at all, that they would have at least attempted to show up to one of these two meetings, to do something to say, hey, we don't want this to be accepted. And additionally, they know how to ask for money in exchange for land. They showed up with the pool. They could have done the same thing with this, and they chose not to.
Yes, sir.
In the staff's recommendations, they recommend adding an evergreen screen to the property. I'd first like to understand your client's reaction to that, and then I'll ask the arborist for the rationale for that recommendation.
Well, it's not something that my client feels is necessary, because once again, their properties have been side to side for years. My client has only been in this house since May. It was vacant before that, but no one has ever expressed any feeling that the houses were too close together or that a screen was necessary. But certainly, if that would make the city feel more comfortable, they're willing to do it. Also, once the pool is filled back in and then constructed in its new place, my client does intend to build a privacy fence. So perhaps that's something that could ease some of the concerns of the city without having to put up an evergreen screen.
Mr. Law, what was the rationale for seeking an evergreen screen in this case?
I wasn't involved in that discussion. I'd
Okay.
like to know, are you aware of what the reasoning was?
In general, when we write the conditions, we're just looking for something, it's just kind of possibilities to remedy the situation.
To mitigate.
Yeah, I mean,
So privacy fence would accomplish the same objective,
Yeah, I mean, it's an option.
if that's what they're planning to
If I
do.
can say so, with the fence, and I'm talking to the Baders in the past, I know they're going to do some landscaping. I know that I'm requiring some trees to be planted out there. I think they can probably meet that purpose, probably with a mixture of materials rather than just a solid evergreen hedge going across the back there.
And would they be seeking that as part of the pool permit? Or is it something we need to address tonight?
That's something I can involve on the pool permit. I can definitely look for trees, landscaping, and everything around that.
With appropriate landscape plan to accommodate the pool as well as the screening of the side yard?
Now, how much of the side yard are you talking about screening?
It's just the back corner.
Just,
Okay.
this area where they're
The
encroaching.
back corner of the property is the one that's encroaching.
The back corner of the house.
The back corner of the house, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I think you'd still want a mixture of material there, because you just have a little corner piece of the house that's encroaching. So, you kind of want to make the screen look like it's in place. You don't want to
Look
just
at natural, right?
Right, you don't want to put 3 or 5 evergreens there just to hide that corner.
Right.
So we can mix it up. We can do a good screening with a mixture of material.
As part of the pool permitting process.
If that's where you want to require it, we can do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Yes, no? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
At this time, we'd like to open the floor for public comment. If there's any public comment, please come forward. As there is none, Mr. Fisher, is there anything else you'd like to say? Any questions for staff? This time, we'd like to close the public hearing. And I'd like to open the floor for a motion, and the only thing that I would request tonight, since we have so many of them, is that when you do make your motion, that you make it as specific as you can, so we're not adding a whole bunch of friendly amendments as we go on through the night. Is there a motion on the floor?
Have some discussion first before.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
have to have a motion to have
You have to have a motion first.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'll put a clean one in front of you, okay?
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve petition V10-011 to allow a house to encroach into the minimum side yard setback as the applicant has demonstrated in its petition that they can satisfy the considerations for our variance request to allow an 11-foot encroachment per the Grant Shepherd plan dated 7/26/10 with the following conditions: that they restore the functionality of the drainage easement to be in compliance with the City of Milton codes and ordinances, would be the only condition that I would state tonight.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Discussion?
Yeah, question.
Sure.
The city had suggested the removal of the partially constructed pool. Did you leave that out intentionally, or?
They're obligated to do that anyhow, in my opinion, and they're seeking to do that through the pool permitting process. So
If they just decided to walk away, however, the pool could just stay there.
they'd be subject to fines.
Okay, is that right? Is that a true statement from the staff? I don't anticipate them doing it, but I just want to make sure we have our bases covered.
I'm not sure about fines. They did a stop work order. I'm not sure what the next step is on that. Well, yeah, the stop work orders, they would only be fined if they went back to work, so.
I guess as long as they restore the easement, what they do with the pool is up to them. So,
If you'd care to add an amendment to that effect.
My main
It'd be
concern
simple.
is the easement, I guess, so I guess I won't
Yes, to
worry about it.
restore the easement, you have to get the pool out.
Yeah, they're gonna have to do it anyway. That's fine.
Any discussion? At this time, we have a motion and a second to approve V10-011 to allow a house to encroach in the minimum side yard setback of not more than 11 foot of encroachment per the 7/26/10 plan, with one condition, and that is to restore the functionality of the drainage easement. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, is the same. Let it be known that it passed 5-1. Thank you, sir. Does anybody have the V10-013 packet? Pardon me? Are we deferring that one again? Okay. Angela, would you like to present V10-013?
Mr. Chair, I would like to request that this petition be deferred to the next meeting. The applicant is still working on various site plans, as far as I know. Hasn't submitted a final site plan to staff yet.
Can I just make one comment?
Yes, sir.
I'm familiar with this site as I drive by it regularly, and it seems like they're continuing to make significant progress on that site. My only concern in continuing to defer this is that we start hearing an argument that they're so far into this project that doing something otherwise would be a hardship. So is that a risk in continuing to defer?
Well, no, I mean, they actually have, I don't know if they presented an alternate plan to staff. I know they've discussed an alternate plan with staff. And they have a lot of other work to do. They're doing a ride arena plus the house. So there's silt fence up or tree protection fence up to keep them out of the buffer. So from what I understand of what they were going to do, it's not something that's going to ruin the project if they can't get this variance.
Okay. That was my only concern. Thank you.
Angela, would you, you're going to include any updates to the plan in our next packet then?
As soon as, yeah,
Or as soon as you
get
get
them.
it, just, because I don't know if I still have that packet either.
Well, I haven't even done a staff report yet because we never done
I see, okay.
Yeah, I never got either.
a final site plan.
Okay.
At this time, I'd like to present V10-015, 14150 Hopewell Road.
And do we need a motion?
We need a motion to defer.
Do we have a motion to defer V10-013?
Chairman, I would like to make a motion to defer V10-013. Basically, the deferment would be till our next meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Let it be known it was unanimous. V10-015 to allow attached garage to encroach in the minimum side yard. Angela, will you please present?
Petition number V10-015, requested variances to allow an attached garage to encroach into the minimum side yard setback and to allow an attached garage to encroach into the minimum front yard setback. The site, 14150 Hopewell Road, consists of a single-family home on 2.7 acres. The property is zoned AG1 and is located in the northwest Fulton overlay. The existing home is 63 feet from the Hopewell Road right-of-way. The applicant, Brent Boyd, proposes to build a 4-car garage next to his home. He states that he needs the space to store cars and construction equipment for his business, as well as furniture and household goods, which are currently in storage. The proposed garage will be finished with board and batten siding and cedar shingles. Eventually, the existing house will be remodeled and finished with these materials as well. The applicant states that the garage has to be located in this location because much of the rear yard is wooded and/or in floodplain. He states that this side of the lot has the highest elevation and no trees will need to be removed. Furthermore, a 24-inch black walnut tree limits the placement of the garage as well. The city arborist has visited the site and examined the tree. While the tree is not officially a specimen, he has stated that the tree is in good condition and should be saved. The applicant has indicated that he would like to save the tree as well. The arborist stated that the structure may be placed up to 20 feet from the tree with minimal disturbance. Mr. Boyd also plans to plant a line of trees along the front of the garage in order to provide extra visual cover and landscaping beauty. Section 64, 416B and C state that the minimum front yard is 60 feet and the side yard is 25 feet. No structures are to be located in this setback. As proposed, the garage would be 25 feet from the right-of-way of Hopewell Road and 15 feet from the left property line. Therefore, a variance is required. Design Review Board Courtesy Review. Courtesy review was performed by the City of Milton Design Review Board on November 2nd, 2010. The board offered the following comments. CPAC is exploring options for ways to expand setbacks from Hopewell Road in order to keep the rural character. They prefer a 100-foot unbuildable setback U-shaped corridor. Approval of this variance would create the closest structure along Hopewell Road. This would be against the proposed comp plan. The size of the proposed garage would create even more of a distraction. The arborist states that the black walnut tree is not an official specimen, but cutting it down would require some recompense. The applicant stated that he plans on planting trees along Hopewell Road for screening and safety. The board suggests that the applicant explore other locations for the garage. With 2.7 acres, there should be enough room to keep the structure out of the setbacks. Why not be behind the house, to the left of the carport, or on the other side of the house? Additional department comments. Staff held a focus meeting on December 18th, at which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, DOT, no issues, and the arborist had no additional issues. Standards for consideration. The approval of the variance is based on the following considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. There are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and that substantial justice is done. The applicant addresses these considerations as follows. Ultimately, it makes more sense for me to try to build the most aesthetically pleasing layout for not only me, but the community in general. This proposal would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance and would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good. As my neighbor supports my plans, this request would not hurt the surrounding properties. The topography and black walnut tree are exceptional situations that prevent the placement of the garage elsewhere on the property. With the planting of the additional trees, the public safety, health, and welfare are secured. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Number 1, the garage should be placed no closer than 20 feet from the existing black walnut tree. 2, the arborist shall approve a planting plan prior to the installation of any trees. This concludes the staff presentation.
Any questions from the board to staff?
Quick question
Yes,
for the arborist. You've been out to the site,
Yes,
correct? Did you take a look at the rear of the house?
The rear of the house,
Per the DRB's recommendation, they're saying, let's, rather than the current proposed location, how about behind the house? I'm just wondering if there were any specimen trees or any issues that you noticed
not
other
immediately,
than the
not
one.
immediately behind the house. I'm not sure how many feet. We have
Yeah.
a lot of clearing immediately behind the house. And I could even guess on how many feet before you start having where it drops down and then you get into the floodplain.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The DRB said something about it's not a specimen tree, but it would still require recompense. Is that a true statement?
Replacements, there's a difference between recompense and replacement. Recompense is for a specimen tree. Replacement is just mitigation type, and that's what we're looking for, replacement for that tree if it's removed.
So you're saying if we required him to move the garage and he took out the black walnut tree, you would require replacement trees?
Replacement, we're looking at, that would probably be about either 5 4-inch caliber trees or 10 2-inch caliber trees.
4-inch or 10?
10 2-inch caliber.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Sir,
Could I give you guys some
give it to them, and they can pass
I've
it.
got a, they asked me to think of some other options, and I've done that since the last meeting. And I have, on the same site plan that you guys may be looking at, I've sketched out some stuff that you can look at. And I've also had pictures of the actual site, if I can explain it.
Are you Mr. Boyd?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Boyd.
If you'd state your name and address, please, for the record.
I'm Brent Boyd, 14150 Hopewell Road, I'm the homeowner. I'm also a builder by trade, so I'm trying to take into account, I'm not doing this to sell the house, but I know at some point I'll have to. And I want everything to have curb appeal and look nice. I know that if I built something directly behind the home, that it would, with the size of the property, it would look a little strange. So I was looking at it in the aspect of what I think looks the best. Like you said, the black walnut is not a specimen tree. It doesn't look nice when there's no leaves on it, like right now, but during the summer when it blooms, it's a pretty tree and it provides the best shade on the property. And I kind of wanted that to be right behind the garage, because I wanted to put a door at the back. I could cut it down and scoot it back, but I was trying not to. One of the things I want you to notice on this sketch that I drew, the neighbor's house to my left is only 69 feet from the pavement, and I took pictures of that and measured it today so that you can see it from the white line on Hopewell Road. And what I have been, if you can see the first drawing or proposal that I made, I had the garage coming 65 feet from that. And what I'm suggesting maybe now is, what if I do not exceed closer to the road than the neighbor's house? Cut the garage shorter, but just make sure it doesn't exceed the neighbor's house. The neighbor said that they're absolutely fine with that. They allowed me to put their phone number on my original variance application. You to call them. They had to work and of course couldn't be here, but they said anybody could call them that needs to. And if you look on back behind their property, they have a horse barn that is actually touching my fence. There is no setback at all on it. It is touching the fence right there. So if you were standing out front looking at the property, and my garage was 15 feet off of the setback, and my house, my garage didn't exceed their house, there would be nothing that looked strange. So that's the other thought process that, or suggestion that I came up with, possibly.
Questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
I've got about 12. First, on your floodplain, is there a defined floodplain behind this property?
A defined one?
In other words, is it considered a floodplain? I mean, I know there's a line here, but it was so light I could not read exactly what it says.
It says approximate floodplain by, you can see it on the full-size plat that I gave to Angela, but it says Rupert somebody, but I don't think that surveyor is still in business.
Okay.
Or I'm not even sure he's still alive, because I tried to contact, I contacted the person that actually did this survey, and the information that he got for this site plan was from a prior surveyor.
Right.
Which he may not be alive anymore. This house was built in 1958.
Sure.
And this site plan here was, let's see, Josh Lewis did this. This site plan was in 93, right there. So he gathered as much information as he could. And
I'll give
I
you,
actually spoke to him on the phone, and he couldn't even really recall where he got the.
well, Jenny Smith is with Georgia Land. I can give you her phone number. That the phone number here is wrong. It's, if you'd like, it's 770-728-2515. Jenny Smith. Yep, 770-728-2515.
Okay.
It does show on the plan that it is in the floodplain, and you're also saying that there's some wetlands as well. Do you happen to know where your septic tank is located?
It's to the right. It's in that right. You see over to the right-hand corner, the clear box of that site plan. I mean, there's an area on the site plan where there's nothing there. It's in that area.
Okay, we're talking about in front of the house or near these trees?
If you're looking at it like that,
With the northwest corner?
in this area where there's nothing.
Oh, this quadrant right here.
Okay, that back there. Okay, okay, okay,
And so that's, of course, off limits.
sure.
I could put it directly behind the house, but I think that would look strange, you know? If I can't put it to the left, then I guess I will. But I was trying to make everything look as good as possible.
And next question on your color coordination. I'm not sure when this picture was taken. I couldn't really tell. Is that true that you have aquamarine shutters on that house? I'm just wondering about taste now. I'm not trying
I didn't
to put you in a
build the house.
bucket here. But,
I didn't buy the house for this aesthetic appeal.
well, I know, but we're asking, you're saying that you're going to have good aesthetic appeal when you build this new one. So I've got to
Right.
put you on the firing line and see if you hold up to muster.
Well,
So,
the first thing I wanted to spend my money on was the garage area.
I understand that.
And my long-term goals are to potentially remodel the home and make everything blend together. And that's another, thanks for bringing that up, because that's another issue about building it right behind that small house, is that if I build a garage right behind the small house, it leaves no room for expansion or remodeling on that house.
sure. And on the roof that you're showing, on the plan that I was given showing what you're going to be proposing to build, that shows, at least it looks to me to be a metal roof. Is that what you're planning to put on it, or is that just by,
No, it's not.
My-
That's just a siding products that I
Okay.
show to represent
Okay.
board and batten and cedar shake.
okay, so
Are you
not.
talking about the sides, like a standing seam?
No,
Because
the
I can't
roof.
see the roof at
The
all.
roof shows,
I think it does have a standing seam on it, on the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
standing
You
seam.
talking about the truss work up there?
no, the actual
Oh,
roof
okay,
material.
okay. Yeah,
I'd probably
right, I got
use-
it now.
I'm probably going to use like an Atlas Chalet.
Okay.
Okay.
Architectural design shingle.
And then on the type of garage doors, I know when you're showing this picture, this isn't really what's going to be facing the street.
Correct.
The actual portion that's facing the street is the right-hand side of this diagram. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you're going to still have windows and shutters
The
and,
doors would be,
sure,
the house would be in the shape of an L, and the doors would be on it'd be like, it'd be kind of
sure.
what's the word I'm losing?
Okay.
You pull in and go to the left.
I
What
understand.
are they called?
Side entry.
Courtyard
Yep,
entry.
courtyard entry. Okay, and then basically, are you going to just take that whole driveway and just kind of enlarge it, and it's going to be there as well? I guess I didn't quite understand why the garage couldn't be pushed closer towards the house. Is that to give you an opportunity to tear that house down sometime and
It is. I was
build next to it?
I was trying to save some room for expansion. I didn't want to get it too
Okay.
tight, because over to the right, I can't do anything, because like you said, the septic area.
Sure.
I can't even cut, and there's large pine trees over there too.
Yes, sir.
And I wasn't wanting to disturb those. And if I did, I would risk messing up the septic system, because the septic system goes in an S pattern,
Sure.
250 feet, and it winds around the trees. So if I just pushed those trees over with a bulldozer, it would rip up my septic tank, and then I'd have a lot more expenses.
And back to the house next door, assuming you did everything right on the measurement, you're measuring actually from the edge of asphalt to the edge of the house. That's where you're saying it's 69 feet. And on this diagram, you're showing your proposed garage at 65 feet. So.
On the original 65 feet. And their house is 69 feet. So,
Right. Okay, but my problem with those dimensions are, you're showing a dimension of the garage as being 25 feet to the right-of-way line or property line. But really, if you're measuring to the edge of the street, it's not 40 feet, it's 30 feet. So basically, you're showing that garage at 25 feet. I'm going to assume that that dimension is correct. Would you have any problem moving that back to at least 40 feet off the edge of the right-of-way? And let me explain again. What you don't understand is that this measurement here is 40 foot to the center of the road.
correct. That's correct.
Okay, and this is saying 65 feet to the edge of the road, not to the center of the road. And I bet you meant to go to the center, but,
Right.
and the
I
surveyor
see
may
what
have
you're-
done
I
that.
see what you're saying.
Okay, so there's a slight
There's an error there.
There's a slight error there, so we need to pick one dimension that we're comfortable with, and that's where I'm thinking that the one we should be most comfortable with is from the edge of the right-of-way, because that's the criteria we really look at, is what's the distance away from the front building setback. So, if I'm assuming everything's correct and you measure to the edge of the street for the house next door, that means they're actually 39 feet away from the right-of-way line.
Right, they'd be 69 minus 30.
That's right. That's
If
right.
you came from the edge of the concrete. I mean,
Exactly.
The pavement.
Would you feel comfortable at least being no closer than their house? I think that's what you were trying to get to.
Absolutely.
So if we made that, instead of 25 feet, if we made it 40 feet, I think then we're a little bit closer to being in harmony with what you're trying to say your comparison is. Now, the only other problem is if they tear down their house and you're left there with a nice new house, there's no comparison anymore. But that's another story for another day. So,
Well, I
okay.
promise you my house isn't going to end up being that big. That's not my intentions.
Okay, so
I
we
do
could,
want everything to match, though, cosmetically.
so if we set a condition, something to the effect that you would use natural colors that are more in the greens and brown tones, you wouldn't have a problem with that.
That's my intentions.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure, I want that. I want to work with that Milton country
I
horse
understand.
farm look.
I know. I
That's
had
my objective.
had a neighbor not too long ago painted eggplant. I never knew what eggplant looked like, but it looked like Barney to me. So maybe too many years in front of the TV with a little one.
Any other questions for the
Do you
applicant?
all, do you have certain colors that you prefer? 'Cause,
I don't. I don't want to put you in that box.
well, I was thinking of some natural stains.
Sounds
also
great.
on this product. Is that okay?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Any other questions to the applicant? Thank you, sir. This time, we'd like to open the floor for public comment. If there is any, please come forward. As there is none, sir, any closing comments, anything else you want to say?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the board to staff? Yes, sir.
Can you remind me again, the front yard, that would be, the front yard setback that would be required, how far back from the right, 60 feet from the right-of-way, from the edge of the right-of-way?
Any other questions for staff?
In terms of the design, is that going to be addressed in the comprehensive plan, that level of granularity on what would be acceptable in terms of the stain and?
Oh, no, not for the Northwest. Pretty much, they don't get into colors and materials for single-family homes.
So as of right now, there's nothing on the books that could,
Not
I
for
mean,
single-family homes.
okay.
This time, we'd like to close the public hearing. This time, the floor is open for a motion. Anybody like to make one? Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion for approval of V10-015. And this is basically to allow an attached garage to encroach into the minimum front yard setback by a distance of 20 feet, and to allow the attached garage to encroach into the minimum front yard setback by 10 feet. And this is with conditions that the colors of this new structure, of both the roof and siding, shall be in natural stains and colors. That shrubs shall be planted to screen the front of this new garage. And the garage shall be placed no closer than 20 feet from the existing black walnut tree. And that the arborist shall approve a planting plan prior to the installation of any trees or shrubs. And those are my conditions,
Can you
Chairman.
address the 40-foot?
I thought I did in the first thing. I said that there was going to be an encroachment of 20 foot into the front yard setback.
20 foot into the front yard.
20 foot into the front yard setback. So in other words, making it equal to the distance that the adjoining house is away from the street.
You didn't say that.
And you said 10 feet. I
You said
think.
10 feet.
10 feet for the side yard.
No, you said 20 feet for
For
the
the front
side
yard.
yard.
Well, I'm sorry, I had it reversed.
As I was writing, I had 20 foot into the front and 10 foot into the front. That was the second thing that you said. I think
Okay,
you
so I
meant
meant to correct it. 10 foot on the side and 20 foot in the front. I'm sorry.
We have a second. I'll second it. Can I do that?
Yeah, I believe you.
Thank you.
You have all powers to move and second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Can you clarify these setbacks for me, Walt? 10 foot into the side, I have that one. I want to make sure I'm clear on the front yard setback.
Okay, so in other words, the actual house is going to be, or structure is going to be 40 feet away from the
Right.
right-of-way line. And the city code is 60 foot, so that's where I'm getting the 20-foot encroachment.
20 foot, all right, thank you.
So, and that's what I'm, from at least his measurement, that's what he's saying. The distance that other houses away is 39 feet from the edge of right-of-way. So I made it move back a foot more.
Understand. Okay, my next question is just a broader question. The way the variance is stated is to allow an attached garage. And based on the plan that was submitted, and it doesn't, how is it attached?
There's a breezeway, those three little lines between the carport and the garage, it would be a breezeway.
So a breezeway to the carport, to the house?
What constitutes attached?
And I guess I missed that nuance. Is there any particular reason?
Well, if it wasn't attached, then we'd also need a variance to allow an accessory structure in the front yard.
Oh, okay. So that sounds to me like pretty much a given, otherwise they're not going to be able to build it.
Right.
Okay.
Anything else for staff? At this time, we have a motion on the floor to approve V10-015 to allow an attached garage to encroach in the minimum side yard setback by 10 feet, to allow an attached garage to encroach in the minimum front yard setback by 20 feet, with colors of the roof and siding to be of a natural stain/color, and that there will be plant screening in front of the garage, and that the garage should be placed no closer than 20 feet from the existing black walnut tree, and the arbor shall approve a planting plan prior to the installation of any trees. This time I'd like to take a vote. All in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand. opposed? Let it be known that it was 3-3, council.
Needs to receive a full majority. It fails.
Motion failed.
You need a new motion.
Anybody like to make a new motion? Yes, sir.
I move to deny, I'll discuss more when we get there, but I believe it should be denied.
I'll second.
Discussion?
The applicant seems open to a potential redesign that would remedy a lot of these issues. And given the fact that I believe I heard that this is the first such structure in the surrounding area, that might be in the DRB comments, I think that's worth considering. So a denial here tonight wouldn't necessarily kill this thing entirely. You could redesign it in such a way that there's less of an encroachment, or design it in such a way that he doesn't need a variance at all. And I think that's worth exploring.
That's not exactly
Well,
true.
yeah, if we deny it, he has a
He has to
year.
wait a year before he could refile.
You get clarification on that?
It's either a year or 6 months.
Well, it's filing maybe 6 months, but you won't hear the case for 7 or 8.
Well, they're looking at up.
6 months.
Because we've had modifications to variance requests that have come back before us. I mean,
I think we've typically deferred those to allow the
Correct.
applicant to come back with an alternative plan.
Yeah, he would have to wait 6 months.
And
6 months.
I'm of the same, feeling as you are to allow the applicant to redesign based on the feedback that, and his own suggestions that he brought forward that are not represented in this plan. I also would feel much more comfortable in approving a plan than, just verbal.
right, and those dimensions, that's kind of hanging out there in the air. That's not something concrete.
We don't even have dimensions of the proposed garage
Right.
in this
Those
plan.
conflict with what we have here.
So I feel that there's some, if he's in the trade, that there's some tightening up that needs to happen here.
It sounds like the applicant's in it for the long haul. I mean,
Right.
that was the indication I got. So 6 months in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
We need,
I have difficulty just with the fact that CPAC, as the DRB said, CPAC is actually going in the other direction. I mean, they're saying we don't want things closer than 100 feet to the road, and we're actually moving in the wrong direction in this case. It just doesn't feel right to me. All the things that you've said, I would second. That I feel like we've got wiggle room here. We ought to try to redesign it and see what we can come up with.
Just again to let you know, the distance is 100 feet. What you're talking about is that the structure is going to be 80 feet from the edge of the road. So it's not like you're on the road. And also with the screening, it's one of those cases, do you really know how close you are once you start putting screening in front to really be able to understand that distance? So again, I think that was the purpose of making that motion for shrubs versus plants or trees, because sometimes trees get so big that you look right under them. And I'm thinking shrubs may do a much better job of screening than typically a tree would.
Trees tend to pose a safety risk as
Yeah.
well, and it,
Right.
I was going to ask, just on the 40 feet, does that not pose a safety risk as well with a car going off the road there and smacking into his garage?
Again, it's 30 feet, in other words, you have a full car length before you'll have a full car length on your driveway before you actually get out off your property. In other words, that whole driveway is 30 feet. So from the edge of the road back to the property line, it's 30 feet. And that's where we're going back, basically back another 40 feet. So I think, again, I'm sorry, it's 70 feet from the edge of the road, not 80 like I said, it's 70 feet.
I think given the size of this proposed structure, relative to the house, it looks larger than the home, that we just need a clearer plan Not necessarily that I would support denying, given the 6-month waiting period, but I think that dimensions for this clearly noted setbacks, correctly noted setbacks, I should say, would make me more comfortable in approving any plan.
Would you all entertain a deferral for 30 days instead of a denial, which would give him 30 days to answer the questions that we have come up with tonight? Would that be?
I think that'd be fair.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so let's vote on the motion to deny. Sure, come on up, sir.
If, I know this is not your problem here, but if this is delayed at all, I won't be able to do it. I won't be able to go to another variance meeting because the bank that gave me the mortgage on this house has some extra money aside for me to do the construction, and they're in trouble by the FDIC. And they are going to be shut down anywhere from January to April. More than likely, there's like a 90% chance. And if that happens, whatever bank comes in and takes over that, just like they've been doing to people all across the country, they're going to close that. They're going to shut, just like a home equity loan, they're going to shut it down and they're not going to be able to do it. So if you all don't allow this, then I probably am going to have to go ahead and do something right behind it. And like I said, I know that's not your problem. I'm just stating the facts. I'm painted into a corner with this situation. And when I started this, it was about 2 months ago. And any more delay, I won't really do it. It'll have to be way on in the future. But to sort of answer your questions, I did on the garage dimensions. I did give that. I think Angela has that. If not, the additions and subtractions right here on the site plan could show this. But I do have that available. I thought that I gave it to Angela in their original application. I have it with me now, back here with the garage dimensions. But that's all I wanted to
Thank you.
tell you.
Let's vote on the motion on the floor. We have a motion on the floor to deny and seconded. All in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand.
You oppose that motion.
Thank you. Let it be known that it passed unanimously.
Flag.
The motion failed unanimously?
Yes,
74.
The motion to deny failed.
yes. That's what I meant to say. Any additional questions for staff before we entertain another motion? This time I'd like to open the floor for,
With a 20.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
for Staff, since I didn't walk behind the house, what's the space behind the black walnut tree? Does it drop off rapidly right there, or is there much room behind the tree?
He gradually, so it doesn't drop off like it does to the right of the site. It's just a gradually slopes down
So
the area of the property.
there are options then behind that tree and still off to the side.
any other questions for staff? This time I'd like to open the floor for another motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to defer case V10-015 for 30 days.
Do we have a second?
Well, it's really, you mean to the next meeting?
Yeah, whatever that is. Do we have to do it in 30-day increments, or can I just say next meeting?
I think the next meeting is.
Okay.
Next meeting will be
January.
9 days.
Second from somebody?
I'll second.
Discussion? Yes, sir?
Again, if everybody's concerned about the black walnut, just to kind of give you dimensions now that we have the actual dimensions of the structure, the length of the garage is 74 feet. If it's 40 feet off the edge of right-of-way, so you've got 40 plus 74 makes it 114 feet. The distance from the back of the garage to the center of the tree is 30 feet. Okay? So if you wanted to get it to the 60 feet, then the actual back of the proposed garage would be 10 feet away from the black walnut tree,
Which would be too close.
which would be too close. So the next nearest distance, if you look at staff's recommendation being no closer than 20 feet, would put it instead of at 40 foot off the edge of the right-of-way, it would be at 50 foot would be the maximum based on this building design. So I just thought, now I've got dimensions, I can kind of pull some things together.
Right, so what we discussed in the original motion, the first motion was 40 foot.
Correct. So that was 30
That
foot.
would, that would only give them 15 foot off the tree.
No, 30 foot. 30 foot off the tree. Once again, 40 plus 74.
How far is he off the tree right now?
114.
With this plan?
Well, it shows the tree is 143 foot, 9 inches from the edge of the right-of-way. And that's why you got to add 40 plus 74. 74 is the depth of the garage, which was 114. 114 subtracted
So it'll
from
give you 30.
144 is 30.
Gotcha.
So, so again, if we're looking at any kind of distance, you could say, okay, well, we'll make it 50 foot. Well, you know, that's getting into the very back, and then you've got, you know, some roof overhang and other things you've got to contend with. But again, the distance seems like we're going to be locked in if we're trying to save the tree as well, to be no closer than probably 50 foot
Well,
away.
I think the reason we are looking at a deferral is to give him a chance to look at other options, perhaps make the garage 54 feet instead of 74 feet, or make it a little bit wider, you know.
A 3-car instead of a 4-car.
See what he can do to say, if you know, he may not want to save the tree. I know he wants to save the tree, but he may decide, well, I'll give up the tree if it means having the size garage I want. You know, let him play with the variables and decide what he wants.
I mean, this is about a 2,500 foot garage.
I'd like to see
Square foot
the garage
garage.
60 feet off the road if we can do
This
that.
is
then there's no need
a
for
big
a variance.
garage, 32 foot deep.
I understand. I just
It's
wanted to bring
an
those
awfully
other
big
values.
structure right next to the road, that's what I have.
It's not right next to the road.
Angela, can this go behind the house without him even
25 feet
getting
off the
a
right of way is awfully close.
variance?
As long as it's out of the setbacks.
So, but I mean, there's plenty of room back there where he could put it where it wouldn't,
I think you have a picture in your,
Yes, it's
I'd
clear.
definitely get out of the front setbacks of the side yard as long as he doesn't infringe on that. There's plenty of room over there.
I'm more concerned with the front. You know, the
Yeah.
side yards, you can find out if neighbors are
Once you get around the house, there's plenty of room.
trouble, which it sounds like they're not. You know, I'm not that concerned with the side, it's more the view from the road and just being up close to the road when we're actually trying to push buildings away from Hopewell Road to have a more rural character. I just, that's why I have a hard time with it being
Does
upside.
someone have the original penciled in
Yeah.
drawing with the house next door?
any other questions for staff?
Did he, I have a question for discussion. Did the applicant say that he had talked to the neighbor? I missed the neighbor angle on this, so the
So
neighbor
that
to
they-
the side
that we
he's
could call
encroaching.
them, he mentioned something along
Yes.
those lines, but we don't have a letter per se.
I thought the side was not an issue.
State one more, real quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
If you all could just allow a side setback, I could push the garage back. I could make it fit between the tree and the fence. And get it out of the right of way. I'm willing to try to make something work where we could all get this off the table and not keep carrying it forward.
So in other words, no front yard setback.
Just approve the side yard.
I have a question for the city attorney. If we were to approve just the side yard setback, what plan would he be tied to?
He just has to-
Just his
If
good
you don't
word?
tie it to any particular plan,
Don't tie
it would not be tied to a plan. It would just be anywhere within the set amount of encroachment into the setback.
Because the requested variance, as it's stated here, is to allow an attached garage to encroach into the minimum side yard setback. So that could be,
well, it's front and side, that's what the,
yeah, I mean, it's bulleted, but,
yeah.
you
I
know,
think the
what I'm getting at
agenda-
is that
agenda-
that could be interpreted very broadly.
If
We always
you
specify
approved it as written,
specify
yes.
in feet to make sure that.
If you approved it as written, but you can certainly attach a specific amount of encroachment.
And what I'm getting at is typically we have something conceptually that we can collectively wrap our heads around and be in agreement with the applicant that we're all on the same sheet of music. And while I think that's a step in the right direction, I'm not sure that that's,
You don't need, I mean, that's why our code is written. You don't
Right.
have a drawing for every portion of the
He's gonna have
code.
to get a building permit and
Yeah, he's gotta go
live
through all
within the ordinance as far as the design of the building.
I would be much more apt to give him a side yard setback than a front yard setback. So if he's willing to push it back, I'm much more apt to, I would be interested in entertaining that in the motion.
But you're concerned with
Yeah, I agree,
with the design, with the
I think
treatment of the
if I could
building, or
go
just the design, or?
Start at 60 feet and work around that tree, I think that I could get enough space and everything.
You won't, it'll be on the ground.
And it's going to make the garage.
It'll be on the ground. The dimensions don't work if you have the same size building.
It'll be on the ground.
The
Yeah,
tree.
The tree will be on the
Oh,
ground.
no, well, as, I could have a little bit more width, starting at the 60, but when I went around the tree, I wouldn't want to get it too narrow.
Make an L shape
But
or something.
I think that I could keep the bulldozers away from the roofs and not get too close to it, not let them,
Okay.
we could
Maybe
work with a
reverse your
Bobcat,
L.
Instead of having a 80,000-pound bulldozer, we're working with a Bobcat right there.
yeah, potentially.
And
We
not
have
get
no
too
idea.
close.
Reverse your L.
We at least have
Make
some.
the L at the bottom versus the
If
T.
he didn't ask for variance, you have to.
The reason it's at the top is because it's attached.
Are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's what you're saying.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to defer and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand. And that failed unanimously. Anybody like to make another motion? Yes, sir.
I'm going to make recommendation for the approval of V10-015. First is to allow an attached garage to encroach 10 foot into the minimum south side setback. Secondly, that the colors of the building shall be
Natural.
natural stained and
No paint screening now.
natural stained materials on the building. And that I can't say it. It'll be on the ground. And that's it.
You want to say this?
No,
Or any other recommendations?
he's moving it away from the,
He's going to build a smaller garage.
right.
And 20 feet from the tree.
Excuse me?
Do we want to specify the 20
We
feet?
need a
No.
second first.
Because it'll be down. If we want to move back, we've got to accept that that tree's going to be down.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have a
Give him
second?
the option.
That's
Yeah, it's
right.
his tree, and do it.
Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Rico, for purposes of your motion, just want to make it clear that you are not seeking any sort of, or not proposing approval of any variance to the front setback.
That is correct. No approval for a variance to the front setback. And the only approvals being granted the side setback that's on the southerly property line, not for both property lines.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. We have a motion on the floor to approve V10-015 to allow an attached garage to encroach into the minimum south side yard setback no greater than 10 feet, and no approval to encroach into the minimum front yard setback at all, and that the colors of the roofing and the siding will be of natural stain / colors.
That's it.
That's it.
All okay.
All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Let me know that it passed 5-1. Thank you. Good luck. Next case is B10-016, 340 Ranchette Road, to allow a guest house to exceed the 1,500 maximum square footage and to allow a guest house in the side yard. Angela, will you please present?
B10-016, 340 Ranchette Road. Requested variances to allow a guest house to exceed the 1,500 square foot maximum square footage, and also to allow accessory structure in the front yard. I'm sorry, allow a guest house in the side yard. The site, 340 Ranchette Road, consists of a single-family home on 2.86 acres. The property is zoned AG1 and is located in the northwest Fulton overlay. The property consists of a 3,415 square foot single-family home, a one-bedroom guest house with a drive-under garage, and another freestanding garage. The applicants, Jim and Dee Gowen, have been living in the one-bedroom guest house since their son and his family relocated to Georgia 3 years ago. The Gowans state that while they enjoy the area and have been families so close by, their current living space is no longer sufficient. They propose to build a 1,915 square foot addition, including a bedroom, closet, bathroom, utility room, and garage basement space, onto the existing guest house garage. This will create a second house on the same lot of more than 3,000 heated square feet, plus an unheated garage of the same size. The basement garage area will be expanded due to the topography of the site. However, the living space will all be on the main floor. This will allow the living area to remain accessible to the applicants in the future as they get older. Section 15983 states that the maximum heated floor area of a guest house is 1,500 square feet. Also, to add that for AG1, accessory structures are not allowed in the front yard. Well, I'm sorry. The guest house is only supposed to be located in the rear yard, and they are requesting to allow it in the side yard. Design Review Board Courtesy Review. A courtesy review was performed by the City of Milton Design Review Board on November 2nd, 2010. The board offered the following comments. The addition should match the main house in material, color, and style. Additional department comments. The staff held a focus meeting on December 8th, 2010, in which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, the arborist and DOT had no issues. Standards for consideration. The approval of a variance is based on the following considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. There are such extraordinary and exceptional situations pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to the size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. 3, if relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And 4, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. The applicant addresses these considerations as follows. The Gowans state that they cannot build another freestanding guest house because the ordinance only allows one per property. The new addition will definitely not cause a detriment to the surrounding properties due to their careful planning for the positioning of the addition on the land, allowing the rural nature of the acreage to remain. The applicants state that the existing guest house has a driveway that enters Highway 140, which is as safe or safer than entering 140 from Ranchette Road. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The addition should match the main house in material, style, and colors. This concludes the staff presentation.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for staff.
Go right ahead.
At the end of the letter of appeal from the applicant, Angela, they state that when we presented our plans in your office in August, we had no idea that we would have any problem adding on to an existing structure, so we continued with our work to get prices, money, and many, many other construction obstructions out of the way. Could you comment on that?
I believe they submitted for a building permit, and I guess they just weren't aware of the ordinance requirements. And as we once we reviewed the permit, we told them, you can't do this, and we gave them the option of subdividing the property because they have enough road frontage and everything, but they chose to pursue the variance.
And had they, to your understanding, begun construction at that point?
Oh, no, they had just submitted for the permit.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure I have my math correct. The existing guest house is in the neighborhood of 2,100 square feet. I was having to back into that, but it sounded like they're going to end up with a little over 3,000. They're currently
I
at
think it's around
1915.
1,500 square feet heated with the drive-under garage, the same size as unheated. And the addition itself is going to be about 1,900 square feet. So altogether, you have about 3,000 square feet of heated space plus the basement.
Plus the basement. And you said that there's an additional 3,000-foot detached garage as well?
There's a detached garage, but it's not 3,000 square feet.
Here you go.
So it says it's 25 by 30.
Picture of it.
Yeah, 30.6.
I didn't take the measurements of the detached garage.
It's roughly 800 square feet.
Page 11, you can see a picture of that separate garage.
This is the proposed. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? This time we call the applicant forward. And if you would please state your name and address, we'd certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Two garages?
Good evening. My name is Dee. I'm a teacher, ex-teacher. I've retired, so I'm not used to being in front of a group of adults, so bear with me.
They're right at home with us.
34 years
You're only
ago.
talking about 4 of us now.
34 years ago, I brought my friend and my husband and 4 boys up to the North Fulton and settled in on Ranchette Road, happy as a lark. I entered the boys into Northwestern Elementary School. They graduated from Milton High School, and I taught at Crabapple Crossing for 20 years. When we came up here, we were enthralled with the area, with the horses, with the farms, with the large lots that people had built houses on. We've seen a lot of changes in that time. I am now asking that my son came home 2.5 years ago from Virginia. He was in construction in Virginia, and it went under, and he came home and with his family and 3 kids. They've moved now into our house, and we had a garage guest house built 20 years ago for my son who graduated from college. We thought that at this time it would be nice for us to live in the guest house and to give the son the house. It has worked out beautifully. Everybody in this world should try living next door to grandchildren. It is a great feeling, and I love it. I want to stay there. But I also have other grandchildren and other children and other family that come to visit. and I need a bedroom for them. We have 1 bedroom and 1 bath. I need a bedroom from them. So this is what we're asking you to let us do, is to build this bedroom and this bathroom. We love our area. We want to stay here. We've enjoyed it. We've got doctors and everybody. And by building this, I'll be able to stay in this until the time comes when I can't. And I hope that's not any time too soon. I'm going to let my husband talk about the building and what is going to be done. Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Gowan, live at 340 Ranchette Road. We kind of got a funny opportunity here. The existing structure was put up at the recommendation of Fulton County. And the reason is because there's several areas that we couldn't build on due to the fact that there is.
Sir, one point of clarification. When you say the existing structure, do you mean the main house or the guest house?
The guest house.
Okay.
When I think I built it in 88. One of the questions was when they came out is, what are you going to do? Well, I need an apartment for my son. What can we do? And he said, well, let me look around, and the only place we could put it was, is where it's located right there. Now, the problem is it's 1,550 feet right now. The other problem is that I didn't know, I guess there wasn't a setback or whatever, but I'm on the side of the property now. I couldn't get it. If I moved any far forward, I'd be on the front. So the two variances that I'm looking at are kind of exceeded. My problem is that this main house has a septic system that goes out this way, and the reserve's here. The second one for the main house is right here, and the reserve's over here. And this, it's not a floodplain, but it goes up drastically, and we used to get torrential rain that came down this way. And the elevation goes up real hard, real fast. So that's why they said put it here. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if you were around, but I think, 7, 8, 10 years ago maybe, we had this huge bunch of pine beetles come through, and they cleared my land. So they took all this out in here to where this was a huge pine forest. It cost me $19,000, and I think we took down 287 pine trees. Well, they did, and I just had to cut them up. But the existing septic was here. I had a new one, and Angela's right, she's helped us a lot. I had a new one put in here, and the reserves over here for this building. And I didn't have any idea that there was a problem in the county or now in the city, because of where it's located and where they told me to put it. I can't build this way because I've got the reserve. I can't go back this way because it starts going up fast, and it wouldn't work with the architecture. And I think I sent some pictures over how we wanted to do the design. And what I've done is I hired an architect, and he has designed it so it looks exactly like the structure was designed in the beginning if you were going to build it from scratch. We even carried, if you look at the plans, we even carried the height of this building at the second story is only 6'4" to the east. And and we framed it that way, and we carried the same structure over here to make it match. We had to put a little bit of a middle in here to make it work. It just didn't look good at all anyway. If we're allowed to build it, we're not encroaching, we're still gonna be on the side. I haven't touched any setbacks. The existing gravel's there, so we won't be doing any of that. No trees will be taken down. There's 3 dogwoods, and we will put something back if somebody will come tell us. But I've already planted a grove, and we started planting a grove. And we have an apple tree that's right here that'll have to be moved. But other than that, we're not gonna take anything down. The pine beetles did all that. The only other thing is, if you've ever lived with a woman with 1 bathroom, let me tell you, it's ugly. I gotta have some relief, believe me. It's bad.
You sure that's not you, she saying that to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, it's, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to tell you. I spent a lot of time trying to put the thought through this. Angela has, I don't think she wants me to call her anymore, because I call her in, trying to figure out the best way to do this. I did submit the plans. They have been approved by Milton completely. Wade has already said that, but we're waiting on these 2 variances. And I didn't know at the time that I was looking at those, or I would have already come before I went to this extent. No construction has been started whatsoever.
Any questions from the board to the applicant? Yes, sir.
What are your plans for the existing garage, the detached garage? Is that going to stay? Is it
This one?
the one that's closest to highway?
Yeah, I'll stay, yeah.
The one that's closest to Highway 140?
Probably store stuff in it or something like that. And on the plan, if you look at the overall picture of what we're making, the reason we're doing it garage, it looks like there's a garage, and I couldn't figure out any way to make it look architecturally to match the existing, so we put garage doors on. And the other reason is, let me say, the other reason is we're doing that rather than posting is I have to, because of the land going up, I have to put a foundation underneath. And it can't be flat, so that's why we do it.
When staff presented, they said something about having explored or at least discussed the idea of subdividing the land to try to make it to where it would be 2 separate pieces of land.
I will address
Can you
that.
address that?
A gentleman at the other meeting asked me to do that. And I'll say this, we moved out here, and I want to say, the reason that we wanted Milton is because we felt like that the city would come in and help us stop the developers from taking this type and dividing it up. Because I can put 4 houses on there very easily. We want to stay here. And I know I can build this structure. I have plenty of setback room. I have plenty to do what I need to do by subdividing. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because I don't want anybody else to get the idea that we want to come here and do this and make money. That's not what this is all about.
Well, the reason I'm asking about the subdividing is I want to know, is it possible to subdivide it and for these 2 structures to be within what would be the new setbacks of the subdivided land? It seems like they're awfully close together. It would be difficult for you
I
to do
asked
that.
Galen, who did this, because that was a thought. Angela helped me. That was one of the first things she said, hey, did you think about this? There would be a problem because of the 2 existing structures right here. I would probably have to ask you for a side variance. I believe it's 40 feet or something or whatever, but I'd have to ask you for a variance here. But other than that, it would work fine.
Yes, sir.
Have you consulted the neighbors on the adjacent property line to the south, the U's?
Well, talking about that. I have. We know most of them. Matter of fact, you taught most of the kids up and down the street. This property line over here, which is going east on Range Head, is not designated commercial, but it is a retirement home. And they have no problem. There's multifamilies living there. That was zoned at Fulton County some 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So it's these people really don't mind. I'm cut off from everybody else because everybody else is down that way. I front the two main roads. Across the street, it's a rental piece of property and we never see those people. And then, of course, up and down the street, we know everybody and they don't have a problem.
So to the south, the closest structure is not within any distance where they'd be able to see or hear any construction?
Oh, not really, no, not at all. These people come over to visit from time to time, we have to take them back.
I'm talking, your map's oriented in such a way that north is actually facing down.
Right.
So when I say the south, I mean the top.
This way over here?
Yes, sir.
There is a rental house, which I tried to show, and I think you have, but it's the corner of it's right there. The reason that this kind of juts, this property line juts, is I had to give them a variance on the property because he built it. The property line was running through his home, and we had to run with the property line. But that's a rental piece of property that, those are good people.
And that was
Is that a shared driveway?
Pardon?
Is that a shared driveway then?
Well, yeah, I let him do it. I let him ride.
That was in Fulton County days? That's been a way.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Gowan, your story so touched me. When I read the story, I had to read it to my wife and daughter as well. And of course, my daughter responds, "Are you going to give me the house and build yourself a?" And I had to basically say, "Well, honey, I don't know. I hope you let us live with you." And so anyway, I was very touched by that. So
I just want to say one thing off the little levity. When he told me we were doing it, such as we were doing what? We're doing what? They're moving into our house and we're moving into the guest house. I said, "Are you crazy?" She said, "No, you're going to do that." I said, "Yes, ma'am."
I was very touched.
Here we are.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. At this time, we'd like to open the floor for public comment. As there is none, Mr. and Mrs. Gowan, do you have a closing statement or anything else you would like to add? Any questions to staff from the board?
Just to be perfectly clear, there are two requested variances before us, and the second is to allow the guest house to be in the side yard.
Side yard, yes.
Minimum, okay.
They are only supposed to be in the rear yard.
And that applies to the old structure as well as the new structure? So are they seeking retroactive permission for?
Well, I don't know
That's the finished product.
what Fulton County called the garage /
Yeah.
guest house, but anytime you do something to make, let's say it's not conforming, anytime you make it more non-conforming, you have to correct it.
Okay.
And just for the board's purpose, the purpose and intent of the ordinance to not allow a guest house to exceed 1,500 maximum square feet. Right, but I think that's the primary point of consideration is, what is the purpose and intent of that 1,500 square foot number?
Well, I think they wanted it to be kind of temporary. I don't think they wanted multifamilies living on one piece of property, and they didn't want it rented out. Like, you can't rent it out. You can't rent it. You're not supposed to rent it.
But what was the intent of the 1,500 square feet, I think, is what Mr. Jack is
I
asking?
think to prevent it from becoming a multifamily kind of
A full-size house.
Enclave. Compound. Waco.
And I guess I need clarification again on, are you saying that there's a variance for a reduction of side yard setback, or you're just saying that,
To allow a guest house in the side yard.
Just in the side yard at all.
okay, so it's not on our,
It's here, it's on the agenda. To to allow a guest house in the side yard.
Yeah, it's not on the main sheet, it's on the agenda, though.
Okay, but where, I guess I'm still having problems, where I see all these building setbacks shown on this plan.
It's not in the setback,
no
it's just
problem
in the
with
side
setbacks.
yard instead of the rear yard.
Well, I understand that, but I guess I don't see,
The guest house is supposed to be behind the main house,
okay,
and technically,
the front yard is on Arnold Mill. Is that what you're saying?
the
No,
front
the front
yard
yard's on
is
Ranchette.
on Ranchette.
You got to write you that address.
Okay, I always thought the narrowest
Backyard. See here.
lot frontage is the front yard,
I'm sorry, yes, the Arnold Mill is the front yard.
okay?
For the main house?
So.
So is it not then really,
Yeah.
It's not how the house is fronted. It's
right,
The smallest, when you're on a corner,
Right.
the smallest frontage is the official front yard.
right.
Right.
So are we saying that this guest house is in the front yard, not side yard?
Well, it's behind the plane of the front.
Right,
Well, I guess, yeah, technically it is in the front yard.
okay.
It's in front of the plane of the house, yes.
To allow a guest house in the front yard.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was just trying to make sure.
Good catch. Well,
The fence is in the front yard.
that's your shot for the year. That's your one.
I thought I did the dimension of the other one. Is that not-
Any other questions for staff? Gentlemen,
Backyard's in the front.
Yeah.
any other questions, guys?
So,
Okay, at this time, we'd like to close the public hearing, and we'd like to open the floor for a motion. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve V 10-016, and I'd like to state this is to allow a guest house to exceed the 1,500-foot maximum square footage, and then secondly, to allow a guest house in the front yard. And I believe that this application will be relief and granted would not affect the spirit or intent of the ordinance. There's no extraordinary exceptional situation or conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, but in this case, I think it is because of its almost triangular shape, makes it very unique. And then also the location of the septic tanks and septic fields makes it very difficult. I believe the relief, if granted, is not going to do detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, and that it does not affect the public health, safety, or welfare of the community. And then also one other condition, the addition should match the main house in material, style, and color. Sorry about that.
Second.
Discussion.
I just want to make one statement for the record. I do think it offends the spirit and intent of the ordinance, because the intent of the ordinance is to not have multiple houses on one lot. I think the fact that it could be subdivided and the only thing that it would need would be a side yard variance probably mitigates that. But, one house per lot, I mean, these are two full-sized houses on this lot. I mean, both of these houses are bigger than my house, and they're very close to each other. So I think overall I'm okay with it, but I definitely have some difficulty with two houses on one lot. I mean, the intent of the ordinance is to prevent exactly what's being done here. I mean, the intent of the ordinance is that I don't build a house and then I build a guest house and make it the same size as the main house so that I can have two houses on one lot without having to subdivide it. This is exactly what's being done. But the fact that it is physically possible to subdivide, I think, makes that maybe a moot point, or at least to the
Well,
background.
I think the fact that it's expanding on an existing,
Which already violates the ordinance, by the way.
which they didn't do maliciously, they
No,
did it
and
with
it was
full
before the-
endorsement from Fulton County.
Right,
and-
that's true.
And it seems to be that the plans that are submitted seems to be very well done.
Yeah.
It's very thoughtful.
And it's certainly not detrimental to the public. I think we've established that.
No.
You also worried, Scott, about precedents?
No, I'm not worried about
There
those.
never is.
Yeah, it's each case unto itself. I think the other thing,
Exceptional case, maybe.
the other thing I'm a little worried about is there's a lot of buildings on this corner. If you count the garage and the neighbors have a garage behind their house, and from certain angles, it really looks like a lot of density on this otherwise fairly large lot. Again, I think the thing that sold me was when they said that it was possible to subdivide with only a side yard variance. So I can go with that.
It really would be a side yard, it'd be a rear yard. But
You're right.
but that's where the
Just
40
just
foot
the
would come in.
separation variance.
That's correct.
Okay, we have a motion to approve V10-016 to allow a guest house to exceed the 1,500 square foot maximum square footage and to allow the guest house in the front yard because relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance and that there are extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, one of those being the septic tank, and the relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good. And the additional condition is that the addition should match the main house in material, style, and colors. All in favor of this motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same. Passed 6-0. Congratulations, thank you.
Do you want your plans?
I need a copy.
You okay, keep them?
That's just cool. I don't blame her. You run up in my car and get me? Yeah. It's that right across the street.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you can. Thanks. Our next case is V10-017, 2145 Clay Drive, to reduce the minimum rear perimeter setback from 35 feet to 26 feet. Angela, will you please present?
B10-017, 13340 Morris Road. Requested variance to reduce the minimum rear yard perimeter setback from 35 feet to 26 feet from the common area, lot 108 and lot 107. The site, located at 13340 Morris Road, is the Hidden Forest, a subdivision consisting of 91 single-family attached homes and 11 single-family detached homes. The property is zoned TR, which is Townhome Residential, per 2002 Z0105, 2003 ZM 0067, 2003 VC 247, ZM 1002, and is located in the Highway 9 overlay. The adjacent property is the Spring Valley Townhome Subdivision, also zoned TR. The area surrounding the subject property contains a detention pond and wetland areas. The required minimum lot width for the residential lots is 50 feet. The applicant, Javad Oskoy, states that lots 107 through 118 and adjacent common areas should be platted to a minimum lot width of 53 feet. This adjustment will enable the applicant to continue to build two-story houses with a minimum width of 38 feet and square footage of 2,400 square feet of heated floor area without a basement. Per 64669.3, a 35-foot perimeter setback is required for TR properties. In order to facilitate the proposed change, the current rear setback will need to be reduced to 26 feet along the westerly property line of the subdivision in the area of lots 107, 108, and the adjacent common area. A variance is required to reduce the setback. A courtesy review was performed by the City of Milton Design Review Board on November 2nd, 2010. The board offered the following comments. The request does not impact any of the neighboring properties, no issues. Additional department comments. The staff held a focus meeting on December 8, 2010, at which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, arborist, DOT, all had no issues. Standards for consideration. The approval of the variance is based on the following considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. There are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of the property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and that substantial justice is done. The applicant responds as follows. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the zoning ordinance. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the subject area consisting of public and market demand for the housing products sought by the applicant. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, but rather would respond favorably to the public and market demand for the housing product which the applicant seeks to fill. The public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done through the approval of this variance application. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The applicant shall revise the final plat prior to the issuance of the building permits on the subject lots. Staff presentation.
Any questions to the staff from the board?
I got a question for our attorney.
Go right ahead.
Sir, it's been a while since we've had one of these where there's multiple lots being considered in a neighborhood, and I know that some of these go straight to council. Could you explain the rationale for us considering multiple plats, vice council?
I don't have all the details on the background of the approval of the zoning on this, but the original development would have received, would have had a plat in front of it and then would have been approved based on that. At this point, that becomes the zoning on that. It establishes the perimeter. I think at this point in time, we have, and I don't know if the individual lots, 107, 108, and the common area have been platted.
I have it, actually.
So in the background where it says lots 107 through 118, is that a typo?
No, it's just,
The other ones are.
No, we're only considering two.
Yeah.
107,
108.
108.
I just don't understand 108.
108, 109, 110 are the lots that are going to be shifted over. The actual perimeter setback affects lots 107 and 108 in the common area.